Hello, welcome to the Milestone 3 tutorial. We're going to get into the code into a little bit, but first I'm going to go through the application and get used to how it runs. So here's our initial screen. We have start game and restart game in the top card shown. Notice I've changed the fav icon and the title of the game. These are all requirements, by the way. We don't have any specific UI requirements. Mine is very functional. As soon as I got to something that looked intelligible, I lived with it. So not too fancy right now on the user interface, functional, logical. Okay, hit start game, and we should see the initial draw of the game. I had to modify my server code to do this, so we'll circle around and do that too. But for example, in the post method, I just returned game ID through the game user interface, right? So that's not enough information for post for this. So I wanted to return the current turn, which is when the game is first created, the initial deal of the game. And that's what you see here. So I modified post on the server side to, instead of just returning the game ID, return the game state, which is the initial deal. So the cards have been dealt. The server is not necessarily telling the client about the deck, but it does tell the client about the top cards and the current hands that you see here. So we have 7 cards apiece, and Laverne is going to go. So you should be able to show a fairly clear narration of this through this. Sometimes I miss things, but for example, a matching card here, Sally's going to be able to match. And then Mike is going to be able to match, and it pretty much the server logic is going to be looking at these cards in the order that we're seeing them here. That's the way they deliver them. So it's going to go from 0 through the cards just like it is in this array, and you can figure out from there what the matches are. Now I must say that as you go through this, you can see some subtle errors that are missed. Now that you can see the cards on the screen, you might see some subtle server bugs in regard to gameplay, but as long as you can show a clear narration in your own Loom video and in your own mind about what's happening next, that's fine. So I'm just going to pause the video now and run this game to the end. Okay, I've run the game through to the end, and you can see Sally has won here, and added a little bit of narration here. So as we've discussed, Milestone 3 is not going to have much narration. That is, there's not much text on the screen describing what's happening. That's really the Milestone 4, the core of the Milestone 4 requirements. I might add a little bit of fancier user interface, but I'm not sure. I think the main thing I have in mind right now is a narration. That is, it's Mike's turn. Crystal drew cards, etc. And so intelligible narration is primarily requirements for Milestone 4 and not here. Notice there's not much narration. And I added this restart game button because it was useful to me in developing the code, so I didn't have to stop the server and restart it. In order to do the restart game button, I had to add a delete REST API entry point that was not required, I don't believe, for the initial requirements for that API. So it's not required for you here, so you don't have to do the restart game button. But again, rather than restarting the server to get it to initial game state, having this requires a delete. It's going to delete the games and then restart it, and we'll take a look at all that code. Okay, so in the next part, we'll look at the actual code that makes the Uno game run.